Today we'll talk about exception handling.
और कोई नहीं है क्या देयर? देयर इज नो वन?
आज सर आएगा लोग, आई थिंक आएगा, देखते हैं। It might
ओके।
come in a second.
सेक्शन नंबर
Speaking me for seconds. Somebody speaking me. Let me check. Okay, इसने पिंक किया है, सरस्वती पिंक किया है कि she is because of family emergency she will not be able to attend the training this week. But the problem is, to uh, we'll start our Python sessions for NetApp, right? So, Arjun, today we'll talk about exception handling. Sometimes what happen, suppose you have created a script and you are trying to write that, execute the script, you're getting some errors. You're getting some runtime errors, and because of that, your program's execution is halted, interrupted. Okay. So what you need to do is we need to find such a way to handle those exceptions or errors, runtime errors. Okay, every programming, not only Python, Java, JavaScript, every programming is having this concept, exception handling. Exception means error, runtime error, which you need to handle. Okay, so what is the syntax for the exception handling?
या
The syntax would be, first you have to give try, and then you have to give the code, that will raise the exception, the code that you want to run which can raise the exception, and then you will give except block, and then you give the exception name. Okay, and then you will give some print message saying that this happened because of this, so that it does not go runtime, but it displays a message, meaningful error which users can understand. Okay, so basically you need to first you will give the try block where you are thinking that this execution or this statement might raise an exception, so you will put it in try block, and you will have one or more except blocks. Suppose you have multiple exceptions, right, and you want to have different except blocks for different exceptions, so you can have multiple except blocks. Okay, and then at the last you have else block. Suppose your try block is not getting executed because of some error, except block is also not executed, then the else, the last block, it will be executed. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let me show you something, 1 second. This is a dunder method. We'll also talk about this dunder method. Okay, talk about this. Normally we don't write the programming like this, but it's a way to do this. Even if you don't write it, it's fine. Like you just write like this, still it will work. But anyway, so small s obviously. So let me just clear this thing. So we'll find a very simple example. Let us have two numbers. You know that you cannot divide number by 0, right? So result, it's a variable we are just dividing num1 by num2, and we are putting the result in the result variable, putting the output in the result variable, and then we are printing the result. That's what we are doing here. After exception handling, we'll talk about functions, packages, and then we'll go into oops concept. And then once that is done, then we'll start our configuring the NetApps, with Python. And then once that is done, then we'll go into Ansible. And once NetApp is covered, then Hitachi, PowerMax, and switches, and CVO, Cloud Volume on tap. The PO will not be covered. We'll cover the next batch, but other things will be covered. Okay. Except PO, everything will be covered. CVO and all. So let us just execute this code. Let's see what we get. Yeah, we got an error, right? The zero division error. We are trying to divide the number by 0, So we got an error, we got an exception, 0 division error, because we tried to divide the number by 0. Okay, now I will teach you a way in which, using which we can handle this exception. So I just use the try block. Okay, so we need to put it in the try block, obviously. Second is, so this is there, print result also, put it in same thing, same file. And then we'll have except blocks, except, so it's a 0 division error, right? Print zero. So here we have the try block where we are giving that actual code, and then we are handling with an except block this thing, okay, like, and then we try. See, we can't divide a number by 0, we're getting a meaningful message, right? And then we can have a else block also. Suppose your try is not getting executed, except is not getting executed, so else will always be executed, okay, else it will always be executed. Print exception. Okay. So let me try. I'm getting a 0 divided by number, that's fine, because it is exception is halting the program, it is just me doing this. But if this thing is successful, right, if this thing is successful, we'll likely give it true and then execute it, then it should print out that last else block, okay. So we are putting the code that might throw an exception in try block, okay. Here this code is giving us 0 division error, 0 division exception, and to handle that exception we are using a except literal. Inside the except block we are printing the meaningful message, and then we have finally we have an else block. This block will be executed only when the exception block, the exception does not occur, okay. If you are dividing the number by 0, the except block will execute. If you are dividing the number by some other value other than 0, then except block will not occur, and we'll get a result, and also the else block will get executed, okay. Okay, so we also can have multiple, we also can create a program which can handle multiple type of exceptions, okay. So let us show you this, okay. Let us give you an, so suppose we are trying to divide a number by another number, okay. So we got the 0 division exception, that's fine, okay. But suppose we got some other error like name error, maybe we forgot to define the variable, forgot to put it, define num1 or num2, we got this, okay. So then we need to handle that exception also, right? So let me just clear this one. So you're not defining anything, that's fine. 0 division error, yes. And then we'll have another error, we can have print except you can see here, right? You see every word in Python when you're using class, or so what you're doing, if you're naming something like name it or something, right, this is a class only. So it is a camel casing, means every word's initial letter, it will be in uppercase, okay. So it's called camel casing, okay. It is used not only in Python but also in Java. So let me just give name error and then print out something. Uh, Print variable is not defined. Let me execute it. Let's see if I get an error or not. See, variable is not defined because it is not really a zero division error, right? Because it's num1 num2 is not defined, so it's not zero. Okay, it's not defined. So it is not defined. That's why it will give a name error. It will give a name error exception, which is, and that's why it will be printed out like this. Instead of name error, we can give anything like error. Okay. Okay, we have not defined this, right? Okay, okay, I'll show you that. Okay, no problem. Okay, that's, I have to show you that's custom exception. That's also show, right, how to create a custom exception. So you can see variable is not defined. You can see this, the same thing. Okay, so able to handle both the exceptions. Okay, both the exceptions. Okay, so that is good. Okay, now the thing is we can do a lot of stuff with Python. We can do, but sometimes happens, sometimes we create something like these are all built-in exceptions, right? But sometimes we may remember, I mean, we may have to create something like, that does not comes under the built-in exceptions like this. Okay, so what I mean is, okay, when I shown you that name error or that zero division error name, exception, right? When I clicked onto that, it was showing as class, right? So in Python, if you want to define a custom exception, you have to create a new class. Okay, and that class will be derived from the exception class only. So we'll talk about OOPS concept, but first we need to finish this exception. Okay, so using the class keyword, you will create a class. Class is nothing but it's a blueprint. Suppose you want to create 10 buildings in your locality, so you'll have some map, right? So the map is the blueprint, and the buildings that you're creating, those are basically object. So custom, so to call this, like to inherit, okay, to inherit or to derive from the parent class, right? You have to give that parent class or the base class name inside the parenthesis of the class that we want to create, right? Okay, so that's what, because we want to inherit the properties of the exception class. Okay, I'll show you this thing, don't worry. I'm just giving you that, what is dot dot, yeah, I'm just giving you the basic funda. Okay, class. So this is something. So okay, so here I'm defining the exception, custom exception. Try okay. So here the customer is basically a class which is inheriting the properties from the exception class. Exception is a built-in class of Python. Okay, so customer is basically an user-defined error, which you are, user-defined error means we are basically defining this error. Okay, sometimes when you are creating a larger script, then sometimes you might have to create your own custom exceptions. Okay, and this file, right, we can keep it like exceptions.py file. We can name it as exception.py file or errors.py file, and if you want, we can import it into some other file also, depending on your need. Okay, so let us just give you an example. Okay, so instead of this, one second guys. Invalid, invalid is a one word, right? Yes, invalid age, that's fine. Maybe exception would follow, right? It's a camel casing. Okay, you can see every word is, the starting is uppercase. Okay, it's a class, it's a build custom class we are defining, and you want to inherit the properties of exception class. So we are giving the exception class, which is a built-in class. I want to give something, so not an empty class. Tab. Here you want it to be less than, you want it to be less than, so you want it to be greater than 18, right? So number equal to 18. Just give an input for this. You already know how to get keyboard input, right? So this is the way, but also we have to typecast it to integer variable. So I also told you what is typecasting in my first class, right? And this is a string, obviously, so I just have to give parent quotes, otherwise it won't work. Okay, and I have to give some statements, if else clauses. Okay, so input number, that is my input. Is a condition statement. Okay, so here what I did, I basically initially I created a function like class, right? It's a class, and it is basically the child class of exception class, and there I have given this thing, right, raised when the input value is less than 18. It's a statement, and then we're passing this thing number equal to 18. So we are initializing the number equal to 18, and we are taking a keyboard input, and here if the input num is greater than less than 18, then it will raise the exception. Okay, and if it is not, then it will print eligible to vote. Okay, and this is except block, so invalid age also will be printed. Okay, so let me execute this. 17, we got invalid age. Okay, let me execute this. 56, eligible to vote. Okay. So here what it did, here raised when input value is less than 18. It's a meaningful thing we have given for us to understand. Okay, and we are just raising an it's the exception, this built-in class, right? This built-in class, right? So if I can, not here, but I'll check how to check that. So the exception class, right? If you read that, you will understand how the code is being created for the exception block, right? Like what are the things where it's inheriting. Okay? So that's what we, this is basically a custom exception that we have created here, which is inheriting for the exception class, and then we are using that exception we are actually using the exception to see whether that exception is being executed or not. Okay, so that's what we're checking. Okay, so here we have defined a basically custom exception. Okay, and we also created a new class which is that inherit exception class, which is inheriting the properties or deriving the properties from the exception class. Okay, okay, so if the exception works, right, suppose the number is less than 18, right, so then the block inside the if keyword, right, it is skipped and it is going to the except block, and this except block is getting executed. Okay, okay, so this is we are doing, and we can also further customize the exception classes, but I will talk about this when you know what classes are, objects are, all these things, otherwise it will be difficult for you to understand. Okay, so we'll talk about that. Again, we'll come here and we'll speak about custom exceptions. Okay, so let me talk about functions. So this is easy only. Okay, it's not difficult. The thing is, it's just we have to know these things, and we also need to use functions, packages, modules, classes, objects, calling, passing the arguments inside the functions, all the built-in functions or customized functions, user-defined functions, all these things we need to know. Okay, and mostly if you are working in environment, right, in different if you check, if you ask query your friends, right, you'll know that also in Naukri, right, you'll see that Python and Ansible are mostly sort out tools for the storage automation. Sometimes Terraform is there, but not every time. Mostly Python and Ansible, and even NetApp also does not teach Terraform, okay, for the storage automation. And Hitachi, Pure, EMC, they don't give you any corporate training on automations, storage automations. I'm not sure about EMC though, Dell EMC, but Pure and Hitachi they don't give. Okay, they have their product, but they don't have their corporate training for this. But NetApp is having. Okay, so functions. Why we recur functions? Why we recur functions? Functions. So suppose you have a program where you have lot of codes written on, okay, but some of the codes are like, it's like duplicate codes, like it's like repeated codes. Okay, so it is always preferable to implement that code as a function, and then you can call that same code using a iterable like loop. Okay, that we did last time, right? We used a for loop. Okay, suppose you have a scenario like you need to add two numbers 100 times, right? So you don't want to give like sum equal sum, like a equal to 5, b equal to 10, a plus b, sum equal to a plus b, then print like this 100 times, right? So you will create a function, you call the function 100 times. That's what you will do. Okay, that's what you will do. Okay. And what is the structure of functions? The functions always start with def keyword, and then you have to give the function name. Okay, then you have to give the codes, whatever code you have. That is my hash. Yeah. Code 1, code 2, you have to give this. Okay, the function declaration will always start with def keyword, and then you have to give the name of the function, and then you have to give the parentheses, and then you have to give colon, like this you have to give. Okay, so let us create a very short function. Okay, so it is here, right? But defining the function is not enough. You have to call the function, right? This is a function declaration. The function declaration is there, but you have to call the function, right? Otherwise, if you do not call the function, then how the function will be executed? So I have to call the function welcome training, and we also have to give the parenthesis, okay, and then just execute this. It will print out this function, the code inside the function, okay, whatever it is there, okay. Okay, so it is like this, and sometimes,
Right.
I mean, yeah, asking something.
No, there. All good. Yes.
Yeah, this is very easy. The oops concept will little bit difficult, but we'll go through that. And even the Python codes are easy, but only problem you'll have with Python code is the parameters, the arguments, because sometimes arguments will be little bit different. And if you're not giving the proper arguments, right, sometimes you have to go to the diagnostic mode to get the UID. It is easy only, but Ansible is very easy, bro, very easy. And if you have CB, you want to use Terraform, you can use the Terraform code for the CB is easy. It's not difficult. In my NetApp training batch, right, in NetApp Healthy training, right, I'm teaching people FSX on tap, Azure NetApp files, and Go Cloud. Okay, so I have my subscription to Pluralsight, which I do after paying some money, and there I'm using the sandbox to give, show them the CBO part. Okay, the CBO part. So that's the thing. For Azure data files and FSX it works, but for the GCP they have not given permission. But yeah, we can still show the options. So that's the thing. So here in some of the functions, right, it will return something. So you have a return keyword, return this, and so that will return, okay. And some of the it will, like, you have to call the function to return. So a lot of things are there. If it is return something, right, and you're giving like 8 plus, like you have the sum functions like b equal to sum this, so okay, this will return and it will then print b. You can do like this, okay. And the thing is, most of the function here, the function is an empty function, right? In the parentheses we did not pass any arguments, it is empty, right? Okay, but in most of the functions that you use with our automation, storage automations, we have to pass some arguments. It can be default arguments, it can be variable level arguments, default arguments, okay. And sometimes default arguments means what? You can put it the arguments here, what you're placing, okay. So that even if you're giving some arguments here, right, that will be replaced by the default argument here, which you put here, okay. These are values basically. So let me show you what I mean. You'll find a lot of interest once you start practicing in your laptop, okay. So I'll ask you to install some packages for Python. I'll let you know. So concatenating file, we're concatenating this, that is fine. I have to, this is something there, right? So this is a function I've declared, but this name is not defined, right? So we need to pass something. 1 second, guys. Int project. One second. Yeah, I've done a mistake here. Name, it should be there. Yes. So here what you are doing, I have created a function, okay. I have created a function, defined a function, and this function will accept the parameter name parameter, okay, and then it will print out this, and we are passing this parameter, we are passing the value for the name parameter, which is Nikhil, okay. And then one second, I did a mistake. One second. Here it's not, shouldn't be print, it will be print name obviously, because I'm calling the function, right? So here, so you can see, right, I'm passing the value for this argument, name argument, and then it is going to print this, right? Okay, so let me do that. Let me execute the code here. Okay, my name is Nikhil. So here we defined a function, okay, and then we call the function, we pass the value for the function here. Okay, this is the value, this is the argument, okay, this is the value for this name function, and then output we're getting this. If we give more things like Nikhil, and we give more things like, Arjun, Okay, so those things will come. Okay, so we can do that. This is pass by value. Okay, this is pass by value. Okay, you can have as many parameters as you want instead of name, age, gender. You can have lot of parameters. Okay, and you can have this. Okay, now let us show you another way of creating functions, like another way of returning value for the function. Okay, using the return keyword. Okay, so here we have given this, right, explicitly we are putting this here, right. Suppose instead of that, let us do this. As I said, we are using return keyword. Okay, so this is a function that we created using the def keyword, and this function, the job of the function is to calculate the summation of two numbers, and then we are actually returning the result. This function is, it returns something. Okay, it's not a void function, it returns something. It's a callable function. So, and let us call the function, right. So add, 1 second, so we can have something, yes, called. So you know that, you know one thing, right, this I've shown you, right. You know one thing, right, that whenever it is this adding something, right, it's an integer, right, but whenever you are trying to add integer with string, it will will get an error, right, because it's different data type, right. So we are typecasting this integer to a string, and then we are concatenating with the this statement string. Okay, that's what we are doing here. Okay, so result is this. So let me just call this function. Sum is 35. Okay, we can even give some space here and just that this might look better. Yeah. Okay, so thing is, you know what we did here, we created a function, add num function. This function will accept two arguments, num1 and num2. It will add them, and then it will return the result of this summation. Okay, and then what you are doing, you are calling the function, we are passing this number, and we can pass another number also. There is 1 equal to, okay, you can see we basically call the function twice, and we passed two different numbers. Okay, again, and the output, you know, we got two outputs. Okay, and instead of this, we can do another thing, which is this one. Instead of giving two numbers, we can give a default number here. 15. We can give a default number for num2. Okay, so num2 equal to, let's say, 100. So this is a default argument. Okay, so the Python functions, it can have default values for the parameters, so which will be known as default arguments. If you do not pass any argument while calling the function, right, it will the default value or the default argument will be used in that case. Okay, so here we are given only one keyword, right, and then we are, so you can see the result is this, and by mistake, suppose you forget to give, right, you forgot to give this, right, so it will throw an error, because we should, 1 second, sorry, not, I need to give parenthesis and then try again. You'll get an error. Okay, missing one argument. because it expected two argument, but what we gave only one argument, so it's giving us error. So you also need to understand that we should give the proper arguments, or otherwise we need to give the default value. Okay, we need to give the default value. So that's what we need to know. Okay, let me drink some water. 1 second. To avoid this kind of error while we automate the storage, right, we need to keep star. Instead of this, we need to keep star. I'll show you that. For star and double star, I'll show you that. That is to accept the variable length of arguments. That is a different thing which you need to use. And our arguments are the values that will pass, right, to create a volume, to create a V server, to create a CFA share. It won't be that straightforward like two arguments. Okay, the data will be different. It will have like nested dictionaries under inside the dictionary, nested list under list, inside the list. Okay, so it will be like this: 1D array, 2D array. So it's not simple like this, num1, num2. Okay, but it is still easy. Even Terraform is easy, but unfortunately, when you are working in storage automation, you're working in storage, when there is something with the cloud, you will have some separate cloud team. Most 99% of you will have a separate cloud team who will take care of this. It's not the storage team who will take care of the Terraform automation. Normally, they will take care of the on-premise automation, Ansible and Python. That's what it will be. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So. Okay. So we talked about functions. These default function, we have a lot of default functions also, like where we have a you're defining a list, right, and then we are running some sort method. So these are all functions. These are all built-in functions. Sort. Even we have a add function. Okay. Let me show you this. Not add, but yeah, we have a sum function. Okay, this is built-in function. This is a built-in function. You can see here, this is a built-in function. This is not created by us. This is created by Python. So these kind of functions will be there, built-in functions. While doing the storage automations for NetApp, okay, we'll use the built-in functions. Even doing automation for Pure is very easy. Okay, but it is difficult to show you because of the setup. But I will show you the Power Max automation. I will show you the Ansible, sorry, the Hitachi automation. Okay, all these things. CVO and SandSwitch I cannot show you practically because it does not have a simulator, but I'll show you how it's done and the codes that will execute, right, that will, you can easily do that. Okay, CVO also I'll cover. So you have to know one more thing, one more function you have to know, that is anonymous functions, where you don't need to create or define the function using the def keyword. And the anonymous functions will be also be called as lambda functions. Lambda, LAMBDA, lambda functions. Okay, so let us create a lambda function. So here what I did, we created anonymous functions which will add 3 numbers. Okay, then the function will call the functions. Okay, that's what I did. We did not use the def keyword, we just used the lambda keyword. So with the same line we are able to declare the variables and we are able to do the do the work. Okay, and then we are calling the functions and printing the result. That's what we're doing. So let us do that. It's 12, okay? So this is, sometimes lambda function is needed, most of them it's not needed, but if you want, this is the way to create it, okay? And you have to know one more thing, that is variables, different, the scope of variables, local variables and global variables, okay? Local variable and global variable. So depending upon the scope, means like the existence of the variable, right? It calls scope, right? So there are two types of variable in Python as per the scope. One is local, another one is global, okay? What do you mean by scope? Scope means like where this variable can be accessed. Is it, can you access the variable throughout the entire code, or you can access inside some functions, inside some particular functions, okay? So when a variable is declared inside a function, it will be called as local variable, okay? And whenever we are trying to access the local variable outside the function, we'll get an error, we'll get an exception, because we cannot access this. But if you are defining a global variable, right, which is basically not declared within the function, then it can be accessed from anywhere within that same program, okay? So let us give you an example. With this, I will need to, the thing is, there are different ways of doing this. Like you can also use like, how to say this? You can also use the keyword, global keyword, but let us use like this. So let us create a very small thing, right? Instead of the pass function, let us do a very small thing. I don't want to do this. It's like it will become complicated. Let us execute this function. What I can see here, local hello, okay? So here we declare a variable inside a function, and this variable is existence is inside the within the function. We cannot really access them outside the function, okay? So these are all basically local variable, okay? So we did this and we executed the code, so it was printed, okay? It was printed, okay? And then suppose instead of this we declared outside the outside the function, okay? And try to access this. We'll do one more thing, okay? So just do this, okay? So what is you are executing? So here when you print this, right, when you just like when you call the function, right, read function, right, so first it is actually printing the local one, this local message, right? So this is local, this like this code is getting printed, right, and then it is getting printed this global, okay? So here you can see you can see one thing. What you can see, I think, one second, let me save this thing again, save it, and let me just clear this thing again and execute this again. Okay, execute this again. Okay, so this variable is declared outside the function, so this is global, this scope is global. Okay, it can be accessed outside the function, and this can be accessed inside the function. Okay, okay, so we got this like this thing, right? So one second, so here we got this like local hello. That is a small thing, let me just do one thing. Something here. So because this function, this variable is, it's outside the function, so it is accessible within the function and outside the function. And suppose you give here, or maybe you control Z, let me do control Z here. No, leave it. I will just keep it here only. Control X, Control V, and then I will just type it. Okay, I should get some error. So I'm able to print out the local variable, yes, but I'm not able to print it outside the function. You can see we have error, right? Message is not defined, because I'm trying to access the variable outside the function, but the scope of the variable is inside the function only. So I'm getting error. But if I declare it outside the function, then I will be able to use it inside the function and outside the function, because the scope is region specific. It's a global. Okay, it's a global. Okay, and instead of this also we have another way of doing this thing. Okay, which is using the global keyword. Okay, so let me show that. Using this also we can do, or we can use a global keyword. Okay, let me show you that. So here I have the global search. Global is giving us some problem here. Dependent function, inside the function, and calling the function. So what we get here? Hello mi, right? Hello mi. So you can see one thing, you can see here, this is a global variable, right? This is a global variable. Okay, and we are giving this here. Okay, so basically the thing is, when you create a variable inside the function, it's a local by default. When you define a variable outside the function, it is global by default. You do not have to use the global keyword, but we can use the global keyword to modify a global variable inside the function. Okay, but if you use the global keyword outside the function, it will have no effect. Okay, what does it mean? What do you mean by this? It means this function is a global function, right? But we can also modify this. Let us modify this. Okay, let us modify this and show you what I mean. So message, otherwise I cannot really show you. New message, a new hello, something like that, and then print it out, a new hello. Okay, so what you're getting, you are able to modify the global variable inside the function by using the global keyword. Okay, that's what you're doing here. Using the global keyword, you are able to modify the global variable, but you cannot use global keyword outside the function, because anyway if it's outside the function, right, it's a global. Like this, anyway it's treated as a global, right? Don't have to keep global keyword here. Okay, so this is what you need to understand. Okay, and what about recursion? You already know about recursion, right? Because you have worked on this, right? Factory and all. We don't have to use recursion actually in our coding. Okay, we don't have to really have to use this. Okay, but let us talk about packages. That is more important. Okay, recursion was very important, back in the day when you did Fibonacci series or factorial, we use recursion, right? We wanted the function to return again and again and again so that it calculates, right? Okay, so now we'll talk about package. We'll talk about package and we'll talk about functions, main functions. Okay, package. Okay, so package is basically, you can call it like a container which will have many functions, and each function can perform basic or different tasks. Okay, for example, you have the math package, right? So this math package, it will have a square t function, right, which will basically perform the square root of a number. Okay, so when you're working with the big projects, you have to deal with lot of code, right? And if you write everything together in the same file, it will be very difficult to do debugging. Okay, instead of that, we can separate our code into small files which you have the related code, and then we can import that files, like those files, whenever, suppose some file is name is origin.py, nikhil.py, so those become packages when you're importing in some other function, right? It becomes a package. Okay, okay,
Sure, then.
for an example. Yeah, yeah, bro.
All good. Please go ahead. No.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah, all good there. Just was acknowledging.
Okay, okay, you're not asking. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
so basically, yeah, basically the thing is, suppose, let me give an example. Store here, store here, store here. Okay, so you have a package here, game package. This is your package, the complete file, the complete execution that you want to do. And the first thing that you have to do, a constructor, like your main file. Okay, underscore underscore init underscore underscore dot py, that is your main file. And then you have to have your sub packages like sound. This is, your game can have sound, right? So sub package, and then you have another sub package, which can be have like image or something, or label or label 2. Okay, so this is like this, and each of these sub packages will have another init, this file, underscore underscore init underscore dot py. Okay, this constructor, we'll talk about this init. What is init? It's a constructor, we'll talk about that. Basically, every file, every directory, like every script that you create, right, it must have a file, it must have underscore init underscore dot py. Otherwise it won't be considered as a package. The file can be empty, okay, but you need to have this underscore init. Okay, so, and suppose you created this package, right? You created the package and everything, right? And then you want to use this package somewhere else, right? So you need to import it, import game. And suppose, you have this game is the package, right? But you have the some module, right, that is label, right? So you need to import some module from the package, right? Then you have to give dot package dot module name. The module name is level. Okay, so that's what you're importing. And suppose in the level in the level module you have some modules like start, right? You can start like this. You can do, okay. You can do like this, okay. And suppose you don't want to do like this, like dot dot dot, right? So how you can do it? You can do like from game import level, okay. Or if you want to specifically import some sub modules, you can do from game small g, right? Game dot level import start. You can do like this, okay. So this is normally you do like this, okay. That is how you know import your packages, okay. That's how you import your packages, okay. So there are a lot of other things there. So this is basically uh, you know the way to import the things. But one thing you have to understand is, which is a very important thing, that is the main function, okay. You remember, right, in C, right, when we studied BTech or BCA, so we have the main function at C, right. In some programming languages we'll have a special function like main function, okay. You'll have a special function like main function, okay, which is basically the starting or the execution point for a program file, okay. So Python, we do not have such explicit main functions, okay. So Python offers different alternatives actually to define the execution point, okay. So you can use the main function, and then you can use, there is a property like underscore underscore name underscore underscore. So this is a variable, this is a special built-in Python variable which will actually show the name of the current module, okay. Depending on where you are, it will execute. Suppose you are in a function, right, you uploaded that function, you have imported that function to some other function, you are in some different function, and if you are just trying to see where you are, so if you just print out this name, right, so it will show you that current function, okay, that current function, okay. So suppose, let us show you what I mean. Let me go here. Underscore underscore name underscore underscore, okay. This is test.py, clear Python, I don't know what you got, yeah. I hope I'm in the same place, right? No such I did. I need to go to this directory, okay. I need to go to this directory, or I need to copy the file and execute this. CD downloads, CD task, CD task, Python tweaks. I might get an error, but it's fine. Even if I get, it's fine. Yeah, new hello, right? So I got a new hello, okay, because I did not save it. Also, let me save it, guys. 1 second. Save it and execute it. Okay, you can see the main function coming in here, right? You can see the main, right? So we have basically, you know, so we're using the Python script, right? So this is, so when you run the program script, the variable name is, you know, this set. You can see, right? I did not give you the main thing, right? So here what is doing? We're running this on a script, right? So the underscore name, this variable always should be the main function. It's showing that this is the name function. So here the code is there, right? So that's what it is showing. We're not importing anything, okay. So basically we can run a Python file as a module. So for this, what you have to do, we have to import this file to another Python program in order to use that as a module, okay. So this is your test.py, right? So let us create some other file. File, new file. What is the name of the file? Let's say hello dot py. I'll save it here, no problem. That's fine. We'll import test. Okay, we'll import test. Okay, and we'll save it here. We'll save it here. 7s. What you can see here, we're importing test, right? And what you're getting here, what we are getting here, we're getting the name of the test file. Okay, so we have the test.py file. There we are basically printing the name, underscore name, which is basically the main function. Okay, and then what you are doing, we are basically importing this module test.py file, which is basically a module, okay, in the hello.py file. Okay, so instead of displaying that underscore main, the program is displaying the name of the module. Why? Because underscore name variable is what? It is actually name of the module is, it's actually getting stored there. So each one. Sorry guys, it's actually free team, so it gets, yeah, it's a free team, so it gets, you know, it gets expired after 60 minutes. So, but anyway, so please accept the other person also. 1 second. Yeah. So let me go here. So what I said, so instead of displaying that underscore main which we got previously, right? So this is displaying the name of the module, which is basically test. Okay, why? Because the name underscore name, the name of the module is basically getting stored or getting assigned under underscore name variable. Okay, so here, so name of the variable this is a main function, right? So whenever I'm defining here, right, it's not a main function, right? It's this function, this package, right? That is getting executed. That is getting executed. So the code from there is getting executed. Okay, that is getting executed. Okay, so let us do something. Let us do more stuff. Okay, to show you what we can do. Okay, so let's do the test by. So here what you're doing, you already understand the name variable, what values it assigns, right? So here we're using an if clause, if condition clause. Okay, why we're using this? So basically we want to run this script so that we want to know whether what is the output is getting executed. Okay, so if you just run this, right, hello w, so it is getting executed this. Okay, because why it's getting executed this? So why what we were saying this? So if underscore name equal to underscore, if equal to, that means assignment. Here it is condition statement, so that's why we give double equal to. Okay, if it is underscore main underscore, that means if this is a main, if this is a main function, then only execute this. Suppose we are actually importing this into some other file and we are doing this, right? So then this will not be executed, because that is not the actual main function. This is the main function. Main function means if this is test, right, then only it will execute. So we are basically explicitly define the main function. Okay, that means here we are creating a custom main function, but it is only executed when this is run as a standard, like standalone script, not as an imported thing. Like, let me show you what I mean. Let me show you what I mean. Import test. Here, let me save this. Control, save, and then type here, and then clear, enter. See what is happening. Enter. What is happening? Nothing is getting executed, right? Because this will only execute if it is a main function. It will not. This is not. We are importing this, so this print statement will not get executed. Why? Even if you're importing this test model, right, it's not getting, because I have already given this statement here. If you are directly executing this, then only, you know, execute the print statement. Otherwise, don't execute it if it's being imported by someone else. So that's what we are doing. Okay, and this thing is mostly used not in automations, obviously, not much in automations, but mostly in web development. Okay, Flask and Django. So they use this thing again and again. Okay. Okay. So tomorrow we'll talk about object and class, and after object class is done, we'll again come into the exception handling, and we'll talk about some custom exception classes in creating something, because there I have to use the class definitions. Okay, so that's why. So we'll talk about objects and classes. We'll talk about inheritance. We'll talk about deriving classes, parent and child class. We'll talk about operator overloading. All these things we'll talk about. There are many other things out there, but you don't have to be an expert in loops. So whatever I'm teaching, right, that will be helpful in your automations. And once this is done, I think by tomorrow it will be done, and then we'll go ahead and start doing coding in Python. We'll create some volumes, we'll create some shares, we'll add licenses, we'll do upgrade. Okay, we'll take node backup, we'll do svmdr. All these things we'll do using Python and Ansible. We'll not do Terraform, because anyway Terraform is mostly will be handled by the cloud team only. Even though CVO also you can do with Ansible, so I'll show you the CVO with Ansible. So in this batch I'll show everything except Pure, because by covering this also it will take a lot of time. NetApp, Hitachi, PowerMax, SAN switches and CVO. It will take a lot of time. Okay. So guys, do you have any questions before we wrap up for today? You understand this program, right? This one you understood, right? Why this
Yes,
is
Dale.
not? Yeah, because this is
Do
main, right? Suppose this is not main. Let me do this.
Yeah.
Hash.
Do we need to install any packages before we move it tomorrow? Dale?
What are you saying?
Do we need to install any packages before we move it to tomorrow?
No, not tomorrow, not tomorrow. Let us finish the Ansible class. Let us finish Ansible, then we'll do. Once we finish both Python and Ansible, then we'll do together. You don't have to do now. You just wait. Just study the things first. You just study
Yeah.
the
So
thing first.
Ansible it will take next week, right? Next full week.
Yeah, Ansible is like you have to install Python, some request packages, Ansible, Marshmallow. Those things you need to install. I have already installed it in my own laptop. This laptop only. I've already installed it. So you have to do that.
Sure, sir. We'll test it. I'll just practice this thing. And just wanted to understand, like, from next week, the Ansible, we will start Ansible, right?
Yeah. But you don't practice now. After my training is over, then practice. Like after training,
Okay.
at least in the midway, then practice. Like at least 1 month or 1.5 months is over, then you can start practicing. First, you need to study all the things, because suppose you need to write some code in Python, right? You need to know how to write that. But most of the time, see, the code can be written differently, right? We're not going to create our own classes. We'll just use the classes that is in Python. And wherever we are not able to do something in Python, we'll use Ansible. We'll just keep it simple. That's it. We have to do either using Python or Ansible. We have to get the job done. Okay,
Sure,
don't make
sure.
it complicated. Yeah. Don't make it
Yes, sir.
complicated. For
Fine.
NetApp, I will teach you using Python, but for Hitachi PowerMax, SandSwitch, and CVO, I will teach only using Ansible. Only using Ansible. Pure I will start after some time. I need to set it up in so Pure also will start. But Hitachi, I will teach you both SAN and NAS for the automation. Not only like one file admin, HNAS, VSP series, E series, for replications, all these things I'll teach you using Ansible, not Python. Okay, but Hitachi is like little different. Whatever things are there in Google, right? It might not work, like the packages. Hitachi is they do not update the Galaxy, the Ansible side. Not sure why, but NetApp updates it. NetApp and SandSwitch updates it. Even you can do for Cisco also, but I'll teach you only Broket SandSwitch, not Cisco. Except switch backup, I'll teach you everything how to do using Ansible. Switch backup, we do not have the the module till yet. For update we have, but not for the switch backup. Okay, so we'll stop the session here. Tomorrow we'll have the OOPS concept, and once the OOPS concept is done, then we'll go into the Python automation.
Sure.
And before doing everything right, I will teach you the basic thing. Like I won't teach like practically like how to create a volume manually, right? But I will teach you the steps. So what are the things we need and how to do it. Steps and flowchart I will show you. And also I have uploaded some sessions in the playlist, right, for the Python. And also if you go to that main session, right, you'll get some Hitachi videos also a little bit, like the manual stuff that you can use actually for the automations. And Power Max also you'll get. SandSwitch also you'll. Now SandSwitch probably you know, right? SandSwitch, not manual things there, but PO is not there. And CVO I'll do this thing for the first time here in this batch. CVO automation. So we'll check CV automation. We'll do for GCP and Azure and AWS if it's also see, because mostly I have done whatever the projects I've worked on, right? I have worked on Azure data files and GCP. FSS not also I've done, but I've done only once, so they're also updated. The thing is, GCP and Azure is very easy, very easy. Okay, so stop the session here. Tomorrow again, please join. Okay, so we'll have the last concept. So this concept we need to learn, because without which you will not be able to understand how to create an object from a class, how to create an object, how to do this thing, because whatever code will do, right, it will be all oops and dictionaries, data types as dictionaries. And in Ansible we have different data types, not list, not dictionary. They have different associative array, different data types are there. So we'll talk about that. Okay, and this training will go on for 10 years, so 10 years and more than that. So you have to repeatedly join to because what happens, the technology is always getting replaced. Maybe that I will tell you one thing. Puppet was very popular. Okay, Puppet was popular, and then we got we like Ansible is popular now. Terraform is popular now, and they're also getting TerraGrant, lot of different things. So we might use some different tools. So whatever tools will be widely used and adopted by our storage vendors, those tools I'll teach you. So maybe after 5 years I teach you something different tool, depending on what I use. Okay, bro. But we'll not teach PowerShell. We'll teach only Python and Ansible, because PowerShell I'm not really comfortable. PowerShell is easy only. It's a noun-verb form, but Python is easy for me because I'm familiar with that. Okay, chalo go bye. So tomorrow we'll have a session, and then day after tomorrow we'll start with actual automation. Okay.
Sure,
Chalo,
Dad.
bye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye. Good night.
Bye. And in case you want to apply for the jobs, right, for normal jobs, right, there are a lot of jobs available. If your salary is little bit less, right, so there are work from jobs available also for simple 5 lakhs. Like you don't need to go to office. So that's another thing. Okay, but mostly I will tell you one thing: most of jobs in Hyderabad, Pune, and Bangalore and Mumbai also. So you can apply for the jobs. Okay, and you can keep your Python automation in your resume, like Python and Ansible. Like you need to, whatever task I specify, you need to say that I created like I changed the snapshot policy of 10 volumes using Python code, like that you can say. Like this you can, like this, like some different touch you need to keep in your resume. Okay. Shalom, bye. Bye.